Have you ever felt like your body is no longer keeping up with you? Perhaps after 65, the activities that once seemed effortless now feel like a challenge. What used to come naturally, whether it was taking a brisk walk, climbing stairs, or even enjoying a favorite hobby, now seems to require more effort, more time, and sometimes it may even feel like a distant memory. You're not alone in feeling this way. Many people experience changes in their mobility as they age. It's a natural part of life, but that doesn't make it any less frustrating, even disheartening, to feel like your world is getting smaller and the things you love to do are slipping out of reach. But what if I told you that limited walking doesn't have to mean a limited life? What if, instead of seeing this as a setback, you could view it as an invitation, a chance to discover new ways to move, connect, and thrive? Aging doesn't have to mean giving up the things that bring you joy. In fact, it's an opportunity to redefine what joy looks like for you. Hello and welcome to our channel. We're so happy you're here with us today. This video is dedicated to all seniors and older adults on the beautiful, sometimes challenging journey of aging, especially those who are dealing with changes in mobility. Whether it's the result of arthritis, an injury, or simply the natural process of getting older, we want you to know aging is not about giving up. It's about adapting, discovering new passions, and continuing to live a life that is full of purpose, connection, and, yes, joy. If you're new here, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel for more empowering, insightful content like this. We're committed to providing you with the tools, strategies, and inspiration you need to live your best life at any age. Today, we're diving into something very close to our hearts. 7 powerful strategies that can help you maintain your mobility, improve your balance, and live a fulfilling life, no matter how much walking you're able to do right now. We'll be sharing inspiring stories of people ranging from 65 to 85 years old, all of whom have faced similar challenges with mobility and have found creative, sometimes unexpected ways to not just overcome them, but thrive despite them. We'll also provide practical tips, expert advice, and valuable resources that can empower you to take charge of your health and well-being. These strategies will help you move forward with confidence and joy, ensuring that you stay engaged with life in ways that matter most to you. So, if you've been feeling like your body's slowing down or your world is shrinking, stay tuned. This video is your invitation to move, connect, and live fully, no matter the challenges. Story number 1. Practicing chair-based exercise, reclaiming movement, reclaiming joy. At 68, Susan had always been known for her love of dancing. It wasn't just a hobby for her, it was a vital part of who she was. Dancing had been her way of expressing herself, her personal language to connect with the world, and a source of pure joy. But everything changed when osteoarthritis began to take its toll on her body. The pain in her knees and joints made even the simple act of walking feel like a battle, and the idea of dancing seemed like an impossible dream. Slowly, the activities that once brought her so much happiness started slipping away. She could feel the joy that dancing once brought her fading, and with it, a part of her spirit. Susan's mobility continued to decline, and she began to fear that she might become completely immobile. It was hard not to feel discouraged. She even found herself asking, "Will I ever be able to do the things I love again?" The thought of never dancing again felt like a crushing loss. But Susan wasn't ready to give up just yet. One day, during a routine visit to her doctor, she was presented with an idea she never expected: chair-based exercises. At first, Susan was skeptical. How could sitting in a chair and doing gentle movements possibly compare to the lively rhythm and freedom of dancing? It seemed impossible that such exercises could reignite the passion she once felt. Still, feeling desperate to reclaim something, she decided to give it a try. To her surprise, chair yoga became her lifeline. It wasn't the same as dancing, but it was something far more powerful. It was movement, it was connection, and most importantly, it was joy rediscovered. As she practiced regularly, she began to notice improvements in her strength, flexibility, and balance. Her body started to feel lighter, and though she still had some pain, it wasn't as overwhelming. Best of all, the exercises didn't put undue strain on her joints, allowing her to stay active without feeling like she was pushing herself too far. Susan soon found herself integrating some of her old dance moves into her chair exercises. It was a beautiful moment, a fusion of the old and new, a way to express herself once again, even if it wasn't in the same way as before. The music, the rhythm, the movement, it was all there, but now she was creating something entirely new. This new form of expression wasn't just therapeutic for her body, it fed her soul as well. Perhaps the most unexpected part of Susan's journey was the sense of community she found. In the chair yoga class, she met others who were facing similar challenges. They shared stories, encouraged each other, and celebrated each step of progress. Susan no longer felt isolated in her struggles. She had found a group of people who understood her, who weren't just enduring but thriving together. And through them, she realized that even when life changes, the connections we make can continue to bring us joy. Susan's story is a beautiful reminder that even in the face of limitations, there are always new ways to reclaim the things that matter most, whether that's movement, self-expression, or a sense of belonging. Through chair-based exercises, Susan found a way not only to keep moving, but to rediscover her joy and her community. And in doing so, she learned that sometimes the path forward doesn't look like we expected it to, but it can still be just as fulfilling. Story number 2. The power of aquatic exercise. David's hip surgery had been a success, but the recovery process was long, painful, and more challenging than he had anticipated. At 75, David found himself feeling trapped in his own body. His fear of falling and re-injuring himself made it difficult to take even a single step without anxiety. So he avoided exercise altogether, hoping that rest would help him heal. But the longer he stayed inactive, the weaker and stiffer he became, and his confidence continued to erode. It felt like his body was betraying him, and the thought of getting back to the activities he once loved seemed increasingly out of reach. When David's physical therapist suggested aquatic exercise, he was hesitant. The idea of moving in water seemed strange, and truth be told, David was embarrassed about his limitations. He hadn't been able to swim properly in years, and the thought of being in a pool, struggling to stay afloat or keep up with others, only added to his self-consciousness. But his therapist was insistent, reassuring him that even the gentlest movements in the water could help improve his strength, mobility, and confidence. With some doubt but a glimmer of hope, David decided to give it a try. What David discovered in the water was nothing short of transformative. The buoyancy of the water immediately eased his pain, lifting the weight off his joints and giving him a sense of relief he hadn't felt in months. The water provided gentle resistance, which helped him rebuild his strength and flexibility without the risk of overstretching or injuring himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of freedom. It wasn't the intense physical exertion he had once been capable of, but it was something just as valuable, a lightness in his movements, a feeling of ease that had seemed impossible after surgery. David wasn't just exercising his body, he was healing his mind and spirit as well. The water became his sanctuary. It was a space where he could move without fear, reconnect with his body, and rediscover the joy of movement. The gentle, rhythmic movements allowed him to shed the anxiety that had once weighed him down. For the first time in months, he found himself laughing, smiling, and truly enjoying his time in the pool. The water helped him feel less vulnerable and more in control of his body, and with each session, his confidence grew. Beyond the physical benefits, David realized that the water was also helping him regain a sense of freedom and joy that had been missing for far too long. He wasn't just exercising to heal his hip, he was giving himself permission to enjoy movement again in a way that felt natural, gentle, and fulfilling. It was a reminder that even in the face of challenges, there are always new ways to heal, move, and live joyfully. David's story is a powerful example of how the right kind of exercise can not only rebuild strength but also renew our spirit. Aquatic exercise gave him more than just a way to recover physically. It gave him back his sense of freedom and helped him reclaim the joy of movement, all while taking away the fear of injury. It was an unexpected but life-changing journey toward recovery, confidence, and self-empowerment. Story number 3. Walking aids, your allies in mobility. Martha, in her 80s, had always been fiercely independent. She'd never been one to rely on others or ask for help. So when it came to using a walker, she flat out refused. To her, it wasn't just a piece of equipment, it was a symbol of aging, of frailty, a public declaration of her limitations. Martha was determined to manage on her own, even though she knew deep down that her balance was shaky and that she'd had a few close calls. The thought of being seen with a walker made her feel like she was giving up, and she was unwilling to admit she needed help. But one day, while walking to the grocery store, everything changed. Martha had a near fall that shook her to her core. She stumbled, caught herself just in time, and stood there, breathless and shaken. The fear of what could have happened flooded her mind, and for the first time, Martha realized that her pride was putting her at risk. She could no longer ignore the truth. Her fear of looking old was preventing her from truly living. That day, Martha made a decision. She would no longer allow her fear of appearing frail to keep her from living life safely and confidently. She accepted the walker, not as a sign of defeat, but as a tool for independence, a key to unlocking the world that had been slipping away from her. The walker became her ally, not her enemy. It gave her the stability she needed to navigate the world around her, to get out of the house and enjoy life again. Martha found herself walking through her neighborhood with confidence, visiting the local farmer's market, reconnecting with friends and neighbors, and walking to the park without hesitation. What she had once seen as a burden, she now saw as her ticket to freedom. The freedom to continue doing the things she loved without the fear of falling or injuring herself. In time, Martha realized that using a walker wasn't about looking old. It was about living her life safely, comfortably, and with dignity. The walker didn't define her. It allowed her to define herself on her own terms. It gave her a newfound sense of empowerment, a feeling of security and independence that allowed her to fully embrace her life without the worry of the next step being her last. Martha's story is a powerful reminder that accepting help doesn't mean giving up. Walking aids are not symbols of weakness. They're allies in our journey, tools that help us continue moving forward. With the right support, we can continue to engage with the world, enjoy our favorite activities, and feel confident in our ability to live fully no matter our age. Story number 4. Strength training for stability. At 78, George felt as though his legs were constantly betraying him. He'd always been active, but as the years went by, his legs grew weaker and weaker. Simple tasks that were once second nature, getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, became increasingly difficult. It was as if his body was slowly slipping out of his control, and with each passing day, his world seemed to shrink. The idea of walking freely, of maintaining his independence, seemed to be slipping through his fingers. George tried to find solutions on his own, searching for exercises online, but they were too difficult for him to keep up with. They left him feeling discouraged and, frankly, a bit scared of injuring himself. He began to believe that this was just his fate, that his mobility would continue to decline, and he would be destined to a life of increasing immobility and dependence. It felt like a heavy weight he couldn't escape. But then, during a routine checkup, his doctor suggested something that would change everything. The doctor recommended that George work with a qualified personal trainer who specialized in working with older adults. At first, George wasn't sure what to expect. The idea of someone helping him exercise seemed both promising and intimidating, but his trainer understood his concerns. She listened patiently to his fears and designed a personalized program that would fit his needs, starting with very gentle resistance training using light weights and resistance bands. The trainer carefully increased the intensity as George grew stronger and more confident, always making sure that each movement was done with the proper form to avoid injury. It wasn't easy. There were many days when George felt like giving up. His muscles ached and the progress felt painfully slow. Sometimes he doubted whether it was even worth it. But with each passing week, George started to notice subtle changes. He found himself able to lift a little more weight, stand up from a chair with more ease, and move around with greater stability. Slowly but surely, his legs were growing stronger. As George continued to work with his trainer, he realized that building strength wasn't just about physical ability, it was about mental resilience too. The small victories, getting out of a chair without assistance, walking a little faster, added up over time, and he learned to appreciate these gradual improvements in his strength and balance. He no longer saw himself as someone whose body was failing him. Instead, he began to view himself as someone who was actively working to regain control. The results were nothing short of transformative. Not only did George regain his muscle strength, but he also regained his confidence. The simple act of playing with his grandchildren, which had once felt like a struggle, became a joy again. He could lift heavier objects without breaking a sweat, and stairs, once an obstacle, became a challenge he could easily conquer. He no longer feared that his mobility was slipping away. In fact, he felt stronger, more stable, and more independent than he had in years. The final triumph came when George joined a local hiking group, a decision he never would have imagined making a year ago. He was back on his feet, quite literally, and enjoying life in ways he thought were no longer possible. George's story is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to build strength and reclaim independence. With the right support and a commitment to taking small steps, it's possible to rebuild not only our bodies but also our confidence and sense of control. Strength training for stability can be a game changer at any age, helping us stay active, engaged, and living life on our own terms. Story number 5. The importance of regular stretching. At 80, Margaret's joints were constantly stiff and aching. Simple movements that most people took for granted, like bending down to tie her shoes or getting dressed, had become daily struggles. The pain was relentless, and it seemed to limit her mobility at every turn. Margaret had resigned herself to a life where comfort and ease were distant memories. She avoided moving too much, convinced that any extra activity would make the pain worse. She believed stretching was something only for younger people, something she'd never need to bother with at her age. It seemed too late to change anything. But during one of her regular visits to her doctor, Margaret learned something that would change her perspective entirely. Her doctor explained that stretching wasn't just for younger people, it was an essential practice for maintaining flexibility, reducing pain, and preserving movement as we age. He told her that stretching could actually help ease the stiffness in her joints and improve her range of motion. He recommended a few gentle stretches she could do at home to get started and referred her to a physical therapist to guide her through the process and ensure she was using the proper techniques. At first, Margaret was skeptical. The idea of stretching seemed intimidating, and she was afraid of hurting herself or making her pain worse. But after a few more weeks of suffering, she decided to give it a try. She started with small, careful stretches, gradually incorporating them into her daily routine. To her surprise, she began to feel a little better. The stiffness in her joints started to ease, and the pain became more manageable. She no longer felt like she was locked in a cage of discomfort. As the days went by, Margaret felt the change more and more. She was able to bend down to tend to her beloved garden, a passion she thought she'd have to give up forever. The simple joy of planting flowers, pulling weeds, and watching her garden flourish was once again a part of her life. She also found herself enjoying pain-free walks with her dog, something she hadn't been able to do in years without feeling exhausted or in agony. The stretches had given her the freedom to move without fear. It wasn't just the physical relief that Margaret cherished, though. She realized that stretching wasn't just about improving physical flexibility, it was also about letting go of the emotional tension and frustration that had built up over the years. Each stretch helped her release not just the tightness in her muscles, but also the emotional weight she had been carrying around. She felt lighter and more free, as though her body was finally letting go of the burdens it had been holding onto for so long. Margaret's story is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to start taking care of our bodies. Regular stretching can help restore our mobility, reduce pain, and bring comfort into our lives, even at 80 or beyond. It's a simple but transformative practice that can improve not just our physical well-being, but our emotional resilience too. Story number 6. Balance training. At 72, James had always been active. He loved taking long walks, gardening, and visiting friends, but a recent fall had shaken his confidence to the core. He found himself constantly worried about falling again, and that fear started to control his life. It became harder for him to even leave the house without a sense of trepidation, as though every step was a potential disaster. The idea of moving freely without fear seemed like a distant dream. His daughter noticed his growing hesitation and suggested that he try Tai Chi. James was skeptical. The thought of slow, controlled movements didn't seem like it would help much with his fear of falling. He also felt embarrassed about his lack of coordination and imagined himself struggling to keep up. But after some gentle persuasion, he decided to give it a try. To his surprise, Tai Chi wasn't just about slow, gentle movements. It was about building strength, balance, and coordination. The focused, deliberate movements helped him connect with his body in a way he hadn't before. It wasn't about rushing through exercises, it was about finding a sense of control, grounding himself, and becoming more aware of his body's position in space. Tai Chi taught James that balance wasn't just about standing still, it was about moving with intention and confidence. As James practiced more, he started to feel stronger, more stable, and less afraid of falling. The fear that once kept him trapped in his own home began to dissipate. Slowly, he regained his sense of confidence. He started walking in the park again, enjoying the fresh air without the constant anxiety of falling. The simple act of walking, which had once been fraught with fear, became a joyous activity again. Soon, James found himself sharing his newfound passion with others. He began leading a Tai Chi class at his local senior center, teaching others what he had learned about improving balance and gaining control over their bodies. The experience wasn't just physical, it was about emotional empowerment too. James connected with others who shared his challenges and celebrated their progress together. He no longer felt isolated in his fear. He felt connected to a supportive community. Through Tai Chi, James rediscovered the joy of movement and felt empowered in a way he hadn't in years. His balance, both physical and emotional, had improved, and he no longer let fear dictate his life. The power of Tai Chi had given him the tools to not only regain his stability, but to embrace life with confidence and peace of mind. James's journey is a powerful reminder that balance training can be transformative at any age. It's not just about avoiding falls. It's about finding the strength, confidence, and community that allow us to keep moving forward no matter the obstacles. Story number 7. Listen to your body and pace yourself. At 73, Helen was determined to stay active. She loved taking long walks each day, enjoying the fresh air and the feeling of being connected to nature. But she often found herself pushing too hard. She ignored the little aches and pains that were her body's way of signaling that it needed rest. Helen was determined to keep up her routine even when her body was telling her to slow down. The result? She often ended up feeling exhausted, frustrated, and sometimes even injured, which would set her back for days, leaving her feeling disheartened. It took some time, but Helen finally realized that staying active wasn't about pushing herself to the limit every day. It was about finding a sustainable rhythm, a way to move that respected her body's needs and gave it the time it required to recover. She understood that rest wasn't a sign of weakness. It was an essential part of maintaining a healthy, active life. Helen learned to listen to her body more closely. She began to recognize the signals of fatigue and pain, adjusting her activity level accordingly. Instead of walking for an hour at a stretch, she started taking shorter, more frequent walks throughout the day, incorporating rest breaks when she felt the need. The shorter walks, far from being a disappointment, became a source of joy. She could savor the experience, really appreciate the beauty around her, and enjoy the time spent with friends without feeling rushed or exhausted. Helen also discovered the joy of mindful movement. She realized that being present in her body, appreciating what it could do, was far more rewarding than focusing on what it couldn't. It wasn't about running a marathon or completing a challenging workout. It was about moving in a way that honored her body's capabilities and limitations. She became kinder to herself, recognizing that rest and recovery were just as important as staying active. As Helen's perspective shifted, so did her experience of movement. Her walks became more restorative and peaceful. She felt less stressed and more connected to herself, to others, and to the world around her. The pressure to push harder and harder each day melted away, and in its place grew a sense of gratitude for the simple act of moving and being present. Helen's journey teaches us that staying active doesn't mean constantly testing our limits. It means finding a balanced approach that nourishes both our body and our mind. By learning to pace ourselves and listen to our bodies, we can enjoy movement for years to come, feeling better and more connected to the world around us. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. Stay active, stay connected, and keep embracing the journey of aging with purpose and joy. See you in the next video.